U.S. intelligence agency mind control.
He lost another close friend, 22-year-old British volunteer Samuel Newey. Despite this, Hegarty says he doesn't feel hatred towards the enemy.
I'm a Christian, and on top of that, whether you're religious or not, I think that those kinds of emotions are would drive things like this war to last a long time, and also drive people to do horrible things to each other.
This is not what I expected.
True American.
It's very interesting.
True American.
After a short break in
that's
Kyiv,
the type of shit you'll hear from American vets, and not other vets. You know, you go ask somebody who fought in the Syrian war, they don't have nice things to say like that. But you ask any American, you know, because this is something that they had to kind of distill in themselves because of Iraq. To make it not personal what they were doing.
Yeah. This will probably be the last video.
Oh, this is a great one to end on, though. Am I right?
Yeah, I figured that this one would be a good one to finish on.
We want to start with the country of Mexico, who is just about to have another presidential election.
I still can't get over
if you live in the United States, you hear a lot about Mexico, but you don't hear a lot of substantive content from my point of view. Let's just say that. So we are really, really excited to have with us today Kurt Hackbarth, who's a writer and journalist with Jacobin Magazine, also the host of the Soberania Mexican Politics podcast. Kurt, thank you so much for being with us.
Why are you yelling at me, bro?
Thanks so much.
Oh my God, what the
pleasure to
fuck
be on
was
today.
Me?
Well, really a pleasure to have you. I think some people probably have some sense that Mexico has an election that's upcoming here relatively soon. Maybe just to start, give us some basic context. Who's running? What are some of the major issues?
Can't wait. Tell us, please, Jacobin Magazine guy.
In beginning of June, Mexico is going to be having its next presidential election.
I'm just watching Rihanna.
There are
Rihanna Kalik?
Rania
Kalik?
Is well ahead in the polls against a conservative coalition of
She's so funny.
parties.
Like the reaction she's throwing out.
Falling on bad times.
The only one that's funnier to watch react to someone talk is the girl who believes in rock on Ulalau's show.
Yes.
She's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Conservative.
I don't know. Taylor Lorenz was pretty good when she was watching that.
No. That's genuine. That's genuine. I'm talking about fake people who I hate.
Fake reaction. Okay.
Yes, these are idiots who I hate.
Yes,
right?
Okay. The fake reaction. Yeah.
They're awful human beings. Okay. That's why it's look, I have nothing personal against the Ulalau girl. I have something personal against Ulalau himself. He definitely is evil. Okay. But the girl, I'm sure she seems nice. Okay. Like she's just getting a bag. I can let it go with her.
Catholic Party and a very smaller party called the PRD. And there's also a third party candidate from a party called Movimiento Ciudadano, which is polling around 5%.
Wait, so I thought, hang on. There's a different one where they actually do the interview with the candidate.
Okay.
Because I know I mentioned that's what I thought we were looking at, is that one where the breakthrough news is but they're just talking about like why the United States hates AMLO right now, which
well, that's
backfires. What do you mean?
Yeah.
U.S. smear campaign backfires where? Because it made him more popular in Mexico. That must be the angle, because nobody even knows who he is in America.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking that they're going with, is that angle.
Morena is doing very well in the polls and is en route to having Mexico's first woman president in Claudia Sheinbaum, who's ahead by 25 to 35 points in the polls against the conservative candidate Xochitl Gálvez. The major issues in the campaign are basically the continuity of what's called the fourth transformation in Mexico, which has been López Obrador's package of energy reforms to bring more sovereignty.
He also evicted a lot of indigenous people from their land with this
together with a
Tommy
series of
policy
social programs such as pensions, scholarships, the doubling of the minimum wage, pro-union reforms, and such. So, in this case, with AMLO's popularity being high, being the continuity candidate is a positive thing. And Morena's looking good so far, despite, and I think we'll talk about this too, attempts from the international media to intervene as much as they can.
And, you know, you recently wrote a piece about this, Kurt, for Jacobin called "The Campaign to Smear AMLO as a Narco." And you break down the various ways that think tanks and mainstream corporate media have sought to slander not just AMLO, but also Morena, the party that he represents, that, you know, his soon-to-be potential successor, Claudia Sheinbaum, if she wins the presidential election, would be leading.
Let me guess what these smear jobs from these think tanks were.
So can you talk a bit about why are the like ruling class capitalists?
It's shit like them acknowledging that they don't agree with his cartel policy, right? Which can come with some pretty strong words if you're very right wing. Ben Shapiro, I'm sure, has, you know, very strong words to say about his amnesty for the cartel policy, right?
Okay.
I don't necessarily think it's a bad policy or a good policy. I just think there's other things in Mexico that need to be addressed that he's lacking.
Okay, are we finishing on this one, or are we going to the other one?
Yeah, the one that's the actual interview with the candidate. Because, like, fuck some Jacobin guy talking about how the U.S. doesn't like these candidates. Who the gives a shit? This is, like, going to be the next president of Mexico. This is very important.
So one thing that confirms some of what you're saying is the fact that you're currently...
Huh? You get all legs from Mama in this.
Leading all major voter intention polls for the 2024 presidential election. What do you think has led to this support?
Okay, first of all, I think it's that I have been in the movement always. I've been near President López Obrador, you know.
I am omnipotent. I am Mexico's next president.
She is. No,
I know. No, I know.
Always, since 2023 years. And at some point, people remember that I was, you know, in the Adelitas movement that we have in 2008 against the privatization of oil, of the Mexican oil, of Pemex. And I was, you know, in many movements. So they think that I can continue what President López Obrador is doing. The second thing is who I am and what I have done in Mexico City. If they didn't like a scientist and a politic to be a president, they probably don't prefer myself. And also my work in Mexico City. If my job here in Mexico had been bad and people were, you know, against me, but probably I couldn't go, you know, to the next step. And finally, believe it or not, is because I'm a woman. You know, it's now time for women. It's incredibly, it's not only the...
Because there's a fucking femicide that's been going on for fucking ever there, right?
Well, this also might be like racism is over. We elected Obama, right? True. That attitude that libs had.
Yeah.
That might be like, well, we elect if females aren't oppressed, they're not being slaughtered.
Femicide's over.
Social movement of young women, and it's also that in Mexico we have already 9 governors and many women participating in politics, so it's not strange. And at some point, people see that it's good to have a president, a female president.
Well, we'd like to talk about one of those reasons.
What would be funny, I don't want to see it happen, is her and Trump going at it because she wouldn't back down from him, you know? And like him getting all like disgusted and like misogynistic towards her. Just like it's not that long. It's a pretty short video.
No, I know. I'm just saying what the things are going with, because we might want to jump around to the to parts. Like there's feminism here, which might be interesting.
I think
about, which
everything that she
is
has to say is interesting. She's an important person.
Yeah.
Your role as head of government of Mexico City, again, a city of over 20 million people, which is very significant. And you were elected by popular vote again in 2018. As head of government, you've taken on many initiatives to address some of the structural issues facing the city.
I just feel like
and
she's
one of them that we'd like to talk about.
Grease her up more, Jesus Christ.
No. I'm looking at Calic, like just the way her posture and stuff. She's just everything just feels so weirdly synthetic to me.
Is of course femicide and the issue of women, which is a huge challenge for Mexico. It's a huge challenge for the region as in general. But in your role, you've taken a lot of different initiatives to address this issue, to make the city a safer place for women. So can you talk a bit about those initiatives?
Yes, in November 2019, I decided to make an alarm for women. We could say that. And so we developed 11 points for women to be safe in the city. And we have now done more than that. I can tell you some examples. For example, we have 27 centers to attend women that have violence at home. We have passed many laws. One that I like to say in many places is that, you know, when we think violence in the household or in families, what we think is, let's take the woman.
Wouldn't it be nice to hear something like this from Russians,
her children,
and their government to say about like regardless of whether she fixes the problem or not, acknowledging specifically talking about domestic violence as being a part. You know, it's not just like crime on the street and stuff like that.
Talking about systemic internal problems. Might actually do the country some
And
good.
you know, what's funny is like I rip on Hezbollah TV a lot, right? But when I said I've been saying for a while, I'm interested to watch that interview. I mean, it's not like they're going to ask, like, you know, it's not like a crazy interview. They're just giving her a platform to talk. I didn't know it was going to be in English either. I didn't even know she could speak English. So
April 15th last year.
You say it in the
Refuge.
Refuge?
Yeah.
So I asked myself, why do you have to take out the women and put it and hide her, right? So now we have a law here in Mexico City that it's the aggressor goes out of the house. So even if the property is not of the women, of the woman, of her.
Nice. You hit a woman in your house,
right.
She gets the house, is what the law is.
That's epic. That's epic.
That's a great law.
That is a good law.
To stay at home. And the man or the aggressor has preventive measures.
Listen to what she said there, though.
I appreciate that she corrected herself to the aggressor.
The man or the aggressor, right? So the policy is going to say the aggressor specifically. So it probably, so it's not a woke policy. It protects men too.
It does. It's actually a thought through policy.
He goes to jail if the judge decided. So it's a complete different way of thinking. And also we have made 800 kilometers of safe corridors with a lot of light and buttons for help, for the police to come. We have a special number. It's 765 to call for if you have
whether it fixes it or not. This is actual government policy that she herself has implemented on one of Mexico's most important issues.
And in its biggest city.
I already like her more than AMLO. I fucking hate his ass. And leave it to Hezbollah TV to do the interview. That's like, okay, now that I've heard her talk and heard her platform, I like what she has to say. We'll see if that continues.
Yeah, you're a woman, and many other things that.
Who's honking?
So we don't know if there are more feminicides now than before, because before they were not counted.
That's such a great answer, right? That's exactly what I've been saying. Did it fix it? We are not sure, right? And like, because there's so many unknown people,
Yes.
At least they're addressing it.
And
that's all I want to
we've
say.
dealt with so many other issues as well. One of the biggest ones affecting the entire planet, of course, is climate change. And you're an environmental engineer. As you mentioned, you were also Secretary of Environment.
Keep in mind,
and you were
know
part
that
of
salmon
the
lady
UN panel on climate.
who Russell Bland platforms. She talks about the nitrogen dead zones.
Yes.
One of the largest ones is off the Gulf of Mexico. So climate change is a huge deal.
Why is that? How does that happen? How do you get
Just
nitrogen?
because of how the
dead
ocean
zones?
current is. All the nitrogen gets swept out right into the Gulf of
Interesting.
Mexico. So there's a huge dead zone, nitrogen dead zone. All our farming needs to be reformed here. Just like the farmers are going to start crying here real soon, just like they are in Europe.
Climate change in 2007, which won a Nobel Peace Prize. And Mexico City, like all major cities, deals with many issues related to this, such as access to water or pollution, just the general impact of climate change. During your time in office, what have been major initiatives that you've taken up to address these issues that affect everybody?
Okay, we have our own environmental and climate change program for the city. And I can tell you some of the things that we have done. We have planted about 35 million of trees and plants in the city. Compared to the last 4 years before I entered the government, it's about 10 times. Second, we have made a lot of investment in electromobility, but for public transportation. So we have the two cable cars, the longer cable cars for public transport in the world. One is in Iztapalapa, the west part of the city.
Oh, gotta go to work. I'm gonna take the fucking cable car. Like I fucking live in a ski resort. That's awesome. I want this. Give me a cable car to Melbourne. I'm down for this.
And the other one is the north part, and especially for the poor people that lives in the mountains that go to the metro. One is 10 kilometers, and the other one is almost 10
Okay,
kilometers.
sorry, I was catching a chinchilla.
And
if I heard, hang on, I can't hear because the headphones aren't plugged in right now. So they're covering my ears too much. If I heard correctly, she said they were asking about climate change. She said we have a lot of electric car infrastructure or something.
No, electrification of infrastructure.
Okay, so switching to like electrical over like what?
Or
oil
putting
power?
stuff like this in and electrifying buses and trains and that sort of stuff,
Okay.
and making sure.
And then I heard a whole thing about cable cars, but did she mention like the super project, the train project that they're doing?
Not yet.
Okay, kind of controversial.
They moved around 120,000 personas.
120,000.
That's right. And then we have already 500 trolleys in the city. We made a second floor, but not for cars, only for trolleys, 8 kilometer second tier.
So moving to another one of those reasons that you mentioned before, which is, of course, the transformation. The fourth transformation has been the guiding project of your party, Morena. So I think it's interesting if you can tell us a bit about what does the fourth transformation mean? What has it accomplished so far? And for you, what is the vision for continuing this project and what's left?
Okay, we call it fourth transformation because since we are a nation, we have had 3 transformations before. The first one is the independence that began in 1810. The second one was the reform with Benito Juarez. We divided the church from the state, and we have also the French invasion and the US invasion. So 19th century, especially the second half of 19th century, was very important for Mexico. And then for many, many years, we have a dictator that was Porfirio Diaz. So the third transformation was the Mexican Revolution, which changed, the government, not only for more democracy, but...
That's where the Zapatistas came from, right? They came out of the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
To see the government for the social rights. These 3 transformations were violent. There were wars. And the fourth transformation is pacific because we believe in peace. And what have changed? We, in 2008, in December, we can say that the economic model changed from neoliberalism, that at some point in Mexico, it's equal to corruption.
I don't know this narrative about how it's not violent, this revolution.
Because the cartels are getting wasted.
Well, because people are dying. It's
Yeah,
a
a lot of
it's a
people are dying.
reform in response to violence. Is that not what happens after revolution?
There's always violence. You're ignorant if you think there's not going to be violence and a change. Like, of course there will be. There's always going to be people who push back.
Well, I think the change started from the cartels themselves, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not necessarily a government overthrow or something like that. But even one of those transformations he listed was reform, not.
Yeah.
And also to give most of the national natural resources to private companies, to a new way of govern that now we call it Mexican humanism. And it's mainly, we believe in private investment. We believe in trade, of course, in free trade. We have a trade with the US and Canada. But we believe that the states have to give the rights for the people. What do we think is a right? Education, health, household, or dwelling, pension for all the elders. And we believe that government has, and also we believe in that strategic areas of economy, such as energy, the state has to be part of this, especially electricity, oil. And
no offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Be very important. It's important, and it's going to be very important in the future. So it's the basic. But we believe also in trade. We believe in private investment, but we believe in wealth for Mexican people. You cannot have private investment measured only by GDP or international investment. You have to measure investment, public and private, in wealth for the people. And that's
if Hezbollah TV can get the future president of Mexico, can 5th Gen get the future president of Mexico?
We might have to go to Mexico.
No, she's got a computer.
No, fuck that. We should go to Mexico.
Okay, I'll send Ace. Good to go to Mexico.
That could work.
I can do it in Spanish too.
That believed that everything was going to be solved by the market.
So also with regards to the region, we've seen many significant electoral victories of the left, of progressive forces across Latin America, in Honduras, Bolivia, Brazil, and Colombia. What is the significance of this progressive resurgence for Mexico, and how does Mexico see itself as part of this?
It's something very special what it's happening right now in Latin America. And I think people decided that the old model was bringing inequalities and corruption in many parts. And people want to have a government that look for the people who have less, historically. And that's very important because, in many parts, from my generation, we always think Latin America as the Patria Grande, and so for me, it's something incredible that it's happening. Now we have to give results.
This progressive wave is distinct in the presence of more female leaders, people like Xiomara Castro, Cristina Fernandez, Francia Marquez, and then Mexico, of course, just hosted the Feminist International, which was a gathering of all these female leaders from across the region. How do you see all of this in relation to the rising tide of feminism across?
What?
I said the intro question of feminism. Here's a bunch of people who, Castro, like, I don't know who any of them were, but I just, I heard the name Castro and I went, what was that?
The region.
It's obvious that women are, getting more in public life.
Shut the curds out.
Because of the feminist movement, because of the young women that have said,
this is like,
stop violence. And
I say this all the time, like people cynical people all the time, because like Latin America, like they're always getting their tits out at the protests, which is awesome, right? Yeah, I encourage it. But I was talking about how like the feminist movements in Latin America are like way well, they're not necessarily the best because I think there's other ones that are just as good, but massive, huge, huge thing. There's other ones that are like fantastic. But speaking of which, there is one video that I think we should end on specifically. And don't worry, it's only 30 seconds, but I'll send it to you.
Stop, especially sexual violence. So this is very important. What I think, and I spoke in this international congress, and I said, let's speak about a social feminism. What do I think about it? We women, we have probably the same problems, but there are some women that suffer more. In Mexico City, we made a survey. Who is more discriminated in Mexico City? And it's because of the color of your skin, it's because if you're indigenous, and it's because if you're women. So if you are, if you're not white,
here we go.
You're a woman and you're indigenous.
I think it was a Daily Wire host. They made like the oppression pyramid. And it was like, if you're just black, you're here. If you're black and a woman, you're here. And it's the liberal hierarchy of oppression. I think it was like a Matt Walsh thing.
Probably.
Or discriminated. And it's not the same for a white women. So we have to think.
Would she be open to normalizing relations with the Zapatistas, or is she on the same level of trying to get rid of them?
Well, currently AMLO's rail project is displacing indigenous people.
Fantastic.
So that do not like this government.
Okay. So, but is there potential that she may rectify these issues, or is unlikely?
I couldn't tell you. Just because she's more left-wing doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day.
No.
And just because she's acknowledging that indigenous people are discriminated against doesn't necessarily mean like
she's going to do anything about it.
Yeah, because this is the issue with states and autonomy. That they really don't like it.
Yeah.
So.
But this is the kind of questions that we could ask her.
Yeah.
Ask the real questions instead of this shit from these guys.
It was probably much easier to ask her questions a year ago. You know. Also,
think about
the fact that they were sending 2 women, and it was probably right after this Congress and stuff. That probably did a lot to get Breakthrough News to be accepted to like do this with her.
True.
The fact that they had women descent, Tanya.
Yeah.
It's not only, the same for everybody.
So Mexico has historic ties with the people of Cuba, and in the last several years, under the leadership
Calm
of
down.
Manuel, there has been
She's
many
so
important
excited to
advances,
talk
with
about
regards to
Cuba. She needs a little less enthusiasm, in my opinion. Just like chill out.
Economic and medical cooperation. Of course, that the U.S. blockade presents many challenges to this. But for you, what do you see as the major barriers to furthering integration amongst the people of the region, and specifically, of course, with the people of Cuba?
Okay, we are against any kind of, how do you say it in English? Bloqueo?
Blockade.
Blockade. Because people suffer from that. It's not just that you're against certain government.
It's pretty standard to be against the blockade, though.
And,
well, I mean,
even though this blockade,
we've already discussed this, like the policies, and I have plenty of good to say about AMLO, not AMLO. Like the policy that he proposed and was working on with the U.S. government was a good policy. It was going to get, like, I believe in lifting the sanctions in Cuba and Venezuela.
Yeah. Like it's not doing anything. It's just making sure that they.
Well, Venezuela is just like Venezuela. Are they really that bad?
Yeah, it's just like what have they actually done?
Yeah, exactly. Like the economic situation there is just so dire. I don't care about this government shit right now.
Just
like,
fucking help them.
It's not like Iran where they're fucking like getting weapons. Well, if Venezuela invades another country, maybe these sanctions should stay on them. But
True.
Who knows? Maybe they're doing that too. The commies will say They're doing that because of the sanctions. They needed the money.
Yeah, because why the fuck not? Because they're already sanctioned. What else can they possibly do?
Yeah. So I think the role that Mexico is offering to also be like a mediator for the United States with these two countries is also very interesting. But like the like, I'm sure the interpolitics who are aware like understand, but I can just see this being framed in a certain way, like Mexico is more loyal to them because they speak Spanish and they're all brown people, and like the right-wing style shit, how they be talking. But it's like Mexico is a capitalist country that is like your number one business partner, my dog. They have United States interest in mind way more than any other country. It's themselves, the United States. Shut the fuck up. Like, they also are dealing with immigration to get to your fucking border. So yes, they want to take over as an intermediary in these states because it benefits them.
Yes.
And you. Like, it's a win-win. It was such a, like, I hate the fucking Republicans so much, bro. Like, at least if you want to behave and talk about the things you talk about and hate and all that shit, just do the policy. Right? Stop saying shit and like just dancing around and doing these, like, do your fucking job. I don't care at this point, like, if it's like a racist policy, just fucking stand on something at this point, like, you motherfuckers.
People of Cuba get
who's honking?
Medicine in Cuba is incredible compared to many other countries in the world. So Cubans have to decide what is going to happen with Cuba, and people of any other countries are going to decide. That's a principle of foreign policy in Mexico. It's in the Constitution. The sovereignty of any country. And especially, we have ties,
but not sovereignty
Cuba.
within your country.
Right now, we have been benefit from Cuban doctors that are coming to Mexico, because in the last decade, medical school have closed.
By the way,
so much
Cuban doctors
that we don't have enough doctors.
Yeah,
slaves.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of links to modern slavery with them. Yeah, not all, but
a lot.
Yeah, so when you hear this narrative about the Cuban doctors all over the world and stuff, a lot of times they're basically coerced into that contract, basically don't make money, have to like basically have their room and board and food covered, right? Type stuff.
Yeah.
Someone's holding their documents type stuff. Just technical stuff that is definitely like illegal wage practice, but rules don't matter and laws don't matter.
So we are looking in any country that wants to help us to have a good public health system, and the Cuban says we help you. So we are receiving that help, and we are paying for that service, and we are paying doctors as if any other country have said that, and that benefits Cuba. So they have to decide what's the future, not anybody else.
And you mentioned the issue of sovereignty. As I'm sure you've seen, we have these conservative politicians in the US that have been making these very provocative statements about military intervention in Mexico under the guise of fighting drug cartels. And this comes after AMLO has nationalized the country's lithium industry, which they're not so happy about. And he's also emphasized the importance of Mexican sovereignty. So what's your position on US interference in Mexico?
I'm against.
Gee, I wonder.
As I'm against, intervention in any other.
Even
country.
She's like, "Are you serious? What a stupid fucking question."
The drug market between Mexico and the U.S. It's because in the U.S. are in history more consumers than in Mexico. So if we want to stop that, it's not just violence. Is to talk to young people that drugs make, especially fentanyl destroy human lives. But it's cooperation. It's not invasion. So you say that invasion. Yeah. So it's not violence. We have to work together to stop the consumption and to stop the market
This
of
is also
fire
the
guns.
level of English speaking
That
that I'm
come
like
mainly from
most
the US.
comfortable
So
interviewing too.
it's, it's mutual. So we have to work together, not,
as a base.
Yeah, these are the when I specialize in like editing and like I can see where I can tell where the cuts are, because when she says like, how do you say, some of those are kept in because they're like a matter to the context, but I can tell there are cuts where she has to think of what the English word is and stuff. And they've made her look even better. It makes her look more intelligent, even though she's speaking 2 languages already. Like, go fuck yourself, guys, but it's just your lizard brain,
Yeah.
This thing that it's just, I think, propagandistic. But we have to defend Mexico at all points.
She's right.
So over the past several months, there have been very large and important mobilizations in support
because
of President.
They ask her the question, right? And she's literally like shrugs it off and laughs that they even had to ask the question about America, right?
Yeah.
Like just like whatever your agenda, And then at the end of the question, she answered saying, "I think it's propaganda what they're doing." Like, she literally is acknowledging that it's not real.
Interesting. She's a very interesting person. It's like Gloria.
Well, Gloria is like
another female leader.
Different one. She's insane in the membrane,
Yeah.
Andres Manuel of the Project of Morena, the fourth transformation in support of the nationalization of lithium. There's now 1 more year left of AMLO's term as president. Can you maybe just, to finalize this interview, if we can kind of talk a bit about these last few years, Morena being in power, and really what has this meant for the people of Mexico?
Okay, it meant general pension for elder people. It meant a lot of scholarship for poor people, universal scholarship for high school students that go to public schools. We're going to have a new train in the south of the country, another train that goes from the Pacific to the Atlantic to the Gulf of Mexico.
Just scrolling over that one real quick, huh?
Yep.
We're going to have several ports. We are going.
And Breakthrough News wouldn't bring it up, would they?
No. It's really not that big of a deal. It's just there is things to criticize on some of these policies.
Yeah.
But I still do think, it takes a lot for me to like somebody who's in government.
Yes.
And some people I do. AMLO is not one of them.
Have a lot of investment in new roads. We have already. We have a new airport. So if you take, the last
how's the water situation?
This government, we have a lot of public investment. The highest foreign investment in Mexico, and you have at the same time new rights for the people. And that's why people are, with President Lopez Obrador in 70%. It's because they see that.
To come full circle, what she's actually saying there, she said new rights for the people. What did she mean by that?
Expanding civil rights?
Nope. In the beginning, she said, we believe in human rights. What we consider human rights to be is a bunch of stuff like healthcare, all this stuff that can be argued, like, is water a human right,
Sure.
So she acknowledged in the beginning, like, we believe in these rights. It's the right of the people to have these things on behalf of their government, right? So when she says people have more rights, she's reflecting back on the central policy of what the fourth transformation actually is.
Interesting. It seems good. She seems fine.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that it's like, it's not like they did a bad job. That's why they're going to be elected again.
Yes, yeah.
This new government change and this benefit for everybody. And he fought for Mexico, and he fought for a new way of seeing history, even for our ancient culture.
New history? What? Woke history?
Mexico have changed.
Critical race theory. He's changing history.
A lot. And the way I see it is that, I mean, people love this change, the majority, of course, and people love the president because he have won the heart of the people. Because he's a president that have fought for them.
She whacked that thing with a passion.
Yeah, it even had
it went,
it went crackle.
25 years. I mean, you cannot write the Mexican history, the first 25 years, the first quarter of the 21st century without López Obrador. He has changed a lot in Mexico, and with a social movement that went with him, but he has been the head of that. So things are changing for good in Mexico, and I think that we have to continue this transformation. We cannot go to the corruption and to
she's so much better than
to
Kamala
the
Harris.
old governments that only did something for privileged people.
Who's honky?
So we are in peace. We have
who's honky?
Political peace. We have social peace. We have violence in certain points of the country because of drug cartels. But we have to continue giving rights for the people, and at the same time combating the drug cartels and every violence that are in Mexico. So it's we're in a good place right now.
Well, Dr. Sheinbaum, we want to thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time.
Isn't it so nice to hear that a government is not saying everything's bad? You have to elect us again, or it's gonna fall apart.
Very refreshing. Anyway, final video.
Yeah. She's so based, bro.
They have to carry her out. I love that they just get her and nobody else. Fucking, like they're doing it.
She's so cool.
Sure.
What a rebel, bro. I respect her so much more than the tomato soup people.
True. She is actually getting out there and putting herself in front of it. So it is.
She also isn't new to this.
No.
Like she's like established herself as being the annoying person about this a long time ago.
Always.
Were the cups in green too?
Yeah, they were.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna pick soundbite and then we'll finish.
Commie bastards. Well, actually, they're not communists anymore. They're a federation of independent, liberated states. Don't make me hurt you, Mikey.
And you definitely have a really, really large dick. Your peepee is gigundo.
Alrighty. Thanks for watching.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?